Hey everyone, we are here. Sorry we're a little late. My name is James Ellers. We are here with another episode of The Gang Saves Humanity to talk about a lot of things that are super relevant and important right now. Join with me as always, Heidi.
Hey guys.
And if you're new to the channel, at some point throughout the episode, her microphone might fall down. So that is an Easter egg. So we're just gonna go. We're just gonna go around and everybody introduce themselves. We'll start with Aarika, then Ashley and Genie and Ronald.
Hi everyone. I'm Aarika Simone. I'm so grateful to be here to talk about these really important issues. Also, thank you Heidi and James for using your platform to address this because these are unprecedented times and horrific things are taking place, and I feel like we need to talk about it. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Ashley.
You're muted.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley. I'm very thrilled to be here today. I feel like yang because that's like a normal adjective that he uses. But yes, I'm excited to be here today to talk about like the issues that's going on in the Black community and how they're disproportionately affecting the Black community. The event that happened with Ahmad is very tragic, but it is not the only event that happens. Like this is, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of common in our community for these things to happen, and then people just go on about their business. And so I am glad to be here.
Appreciate you, Genie.
Hey guys, I'm Genie, and I'm also really glad to be here to talk about these issues. It's definitely important that we have conversations like this.
Absolutely. Thanks, Genie. Short and sweet. Ronald.
Okay, I'm Ronald Marzette. How's everybody doing? Again, it's an honor to be here to talk about things that are happening in our community and pretty much have that discussion out in the open because it is one of those not so easy topics to talk about, especially with what's going on around the country, around the nation. And we just need to address it, come together and address it and find a way what we can do to solve or rectify it and make sure it does not happen to any more generations after ours.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you all so much for coming on our live stream. I struggled with like if I should, do this at all. And I thought, this is Ellers and I's live stream. If we did something on our own, it would not be right. It's like every time I see men on Capitol Hill talking about abortion, and I'm like, where's the women, right? But at the same time, as someone who is an advocate for women and then women victims of sexual assault, a lot of times I don't want to be that person. I'm just like, can you guys just be human and figure this, and help us? Like, why do we have to be I always have to get out here and show you this is what happened to me. This is why you should help. So I had kind of like these two things in my mind, and I really appreciate that you guys are willing to come and to talk with us. I can speak for myself. When I saw this video, I was horrified, and it's one of those things. It's kind of like when you have mass shootings, everybody is like, for a day or two, they're like, oh my gosh, and then they go on with their lives. And it's like, this is the same thing. It's like, how many times have I seen a video now of a Black man gunned down, and we've moved on with our lives. We haven't changed anything. So, the Yang Gang to me is a force for change in many areas besides universal basic income. So I wanted to bring you guys on here and talk about this because I think that we can be leaders. And I think that the Yang Gang, during Yang 2020, reaching out to the Black community, we weren't that good at it, and then, yeah, I see Ronald shaking his head. And I know Aarika, knows that it just wasn't our strong suit. And, Yang Gang's going to be around for a while, and we can do more than just focus on UBI. We can build these bridges, and we can be on the forefront of a lot of things. So also, if you guys haven't seen the news yet, I actually just got this right before we got into the live stream, is that these two guys, their names are, I don't even want to say their names, but these rednecks in Georgia that, assassinated a man in broad daylight and thought they were going to get away with it, are now in police custody. They have been arrested. So that was just like amazing news, like right before we got on the live stream to see that. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. We're going to we just want to have a dialogue. I want you guys to, share like how this made you feel. I want you to tell us, I guess something I want to know is how we can help, because I am sick of this happening over and over. And literally, we now have video evidence of this stuff happening, and they still get away with it, right? So, first of all, you guys are all members of MCOY, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are like a top secret organization. I would love for one of you guys to please explain to us a little bit about MCOY, if you guys are still active, like since Yang dropped out, and what it is that you guys are doing. I think Ronald said he would speak for you guys.
Okay, so MCOY is basically an acronym, stands for Melanated Council of Yang, and basically it's a group of brothers and sisters of course, our skin complexion, black brothers, black sisters, brown, whatever you want to call it. We all came together with the idea of, hey, we found the guy that's willing to go to battle for us, and of course he doesn't have like a close knit group like ours. And let's go ahead and let's get this guy on the ballot. Let's do what we can to make sure his voice gets heard, because he's bringing something new. He's bringing something new to the table. And we're like, we're going to rally behind him, and we're going to do what we can to get out there. Of course, you got Aarika, love you. And your charismatic self, you just out there, with Security James, doing what you do best out in Iowa, and kicking butt and everything else. And then of course you got Ashley over here who we talked about before. It is like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. But she's really outspoken. Like, don't let the calm demeanor get to you guys. She's really, really, really outspoken. And
yeah, don't ever change, Ashley.
She's passionate. And then of course you got my man Genie. I mean, dude, brother, your posts, your tweets, I mean, they're right on it. Even if people don't catch it, it leads you to go back and think about, like, okay, what he said actually makes sense. And so you got to reevaluate and go back and be like, okay, I see where the dots are being connected. We just got to make sure we get those lines together. And the group is still going strong, even after Yang stopped his campaign. We're like, we've known each other. It almost feels like we've known each other for years. And it's been like months. And we came more or less like a close-knit family. And so, especially when we had these shootings that came about, we talked about them. Like, literally, we talked about it before we did any kind of posting, because we want to get a different perspective from one another and try to engage in a topic, in a conversation where it's not easy to have. It's really not, especially like we said before. It's happening continually. Like, oh, it's another black shooting. Okay, I'm gonna put my phone down. I'm gonna go about my day. Or hey, I'm gonna go ahead and do my reps and whatnot and go about my day. And it's like, we gotta have a point where we have to stop and we have to address it, and we have to speak light of it, because if we don't, it's going to continue. And the more it continues, the younger generation that's behind us, they're going to think it's okay to do it. They're going to think it's okay to live above the law and not face any of these consequences, to not face any kind of repercussions. That it's going to be okay to have a group of people live in fear, on top of the fact they're already living in fear.
I want to just jump in here and say a couple things about the Gang campaign, and specifically this particular group of amazing, dynamic individuals that got together. So one thing that was really unfortunate that didn't get to happen during the campaign because Andrew suspended is that we were organizing a town hall specifically to address issues that are impacting communities of colors. And I will never forget when we drafted that email, we sent it off, and within like hours, Yang was like, let's make it happen. And the organizing immediately took place. And I think for me, that was like, okay, this is my guy, this is my candidate, because within hours, I'm telling you, he was down. And then we got Karen Hunter on board, and she was willing to be a moderator. And so we were organizing in Crenshaw in a way that was smart. It was intentional. We were coming up with really good questions that I think transcend through the African American community. And it was probably one of the biggest upsets for us that we couldn't have the town hall. And I'm definitely going to try to encourage Andrew, I think we all will, to do that early on, because these conversations have to be had, and we cannot let this go. And I think on top of using Andrew, like having the support of Andrew Yang, we also need to start running for office. We also need to start voting for down ballot candidates. We also need to make sure our kids are getting the best education possible. And so I think this particular incident highlights who this country is not working for. And if we don't step up and speak up and do something, it's never going to change. It's going to become normal. And I take real issue with that. And it's also beyond just Black people speaking on it. I think all people need to speak on it, because it's a humanitarian issue. It's a injustice for all. And so that is why I'm a little bit spicy about this.
I feel like I just want to jump in. I feel like in the Black community, like we have such a distrust for like the government and all of that, because I mean, you go to Black neighborhoods, predominantly African American neighborhoods, you see, cracked sidewalks, you see tall grass, and like what people don't know is there are some parts of the country that literally look like third world countries. And oftentimes they try to, I guess, say that, Black people are just thugs, or try to write us off as that. But what people don't understand is the data shows that poverty and crime are very correlated. Like when a person has to think about survival 24/7, then, their survival instincts take first recognition. Because like when a person is starving, they don't just sit down and starve to death. And it's a whole system of just that's failing the Black community, from education to the like basically concentrating all Black poor people in like one area, to basically like even like how the neighborhoods look, because how is a person supposed to feel when they come home to, cracked sidewalks, and they come home to busted doors and all of that? It's very unfortunate. And I just feel like, I mean, in order for there to be like trust with Black people and the government and, even our local people, like, our Congress people, senators, all of them, governors, they need to, see us. Because I mean, oftentimes when
actually not just see us, do something about it. Because I think that they see us, but I don't think that they're doing anything about it, and that's the issue. Jeannie, I do think you need to speak on this. So I just want to say I agree. Like, I just feel like action is more pressing now, and if we don't hold our elected officials accountable, this is going to continue to happen. We saw this for the last, since social media has been happening. We've been seeing the videos. Well, what about all the times where we didn't have social media and we didn't have the opportunity to post this stuff? And so I'm really all about the action now. And we have to, it's like what Shirley Tisdale said, bring a seat to the table if you're not invited. So we need to start bringing our folding chairs to the table and making sure that laws are being put in place to protect us, that support us, that elevate us, because we are equally as important as everyone else. No one is better than anyone else. So our country needs to function just as such.
And I'd also encourage I think when we have a coalition full of all groups, not just Black people, but I'd encourage, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people. We should all come together because this is a humanity crisis. This isn't just a Black people crisis. We need all of us. It needs to be all hands on deck because this is something that, one small group of people can't really handle on their own because we're stronger together than divided. Because when we're divided, we're weak. And so what we see in this country with the mistreatment of minorities is mainly due to the division in this country. There's so many of us. And I've talked to so many, I've had many white friends in my life, and many of them are sympathetic with the Black issues, but they're just ignorant on what systemic racism is, how mass incarceration came to be, how Black people get into the system from an early age and can't really get a mortgage because once you are in the system, you can't do a lot of things, including
the system was set up for us to fail, though, too. It wasn't ever set up to be fair. And that's where the education piece comes in. And that's why we have to update our curriculum. We need to rewrite our history books because they're not factual. So I think that if we don't acknowledge that we didn't have the same we didn't start at the same place, we're never going to get anywhere. Absolutely. And I think some of the times said our schools do not look, no, they don't. And I know firsthand because I'm a teacher. But Genie, you have to speak on this. What do you think?
Guys, let the man speak.
Wait, let's look at him first. Nobody's ever seen Genie before, by the way.
Being, the week talking time. But you're right. It starts even not even just about the, growing up in areas where you don't need to worry about whether or not you have a meal on your table. In richer neighborhoods, they have classes where they can come out with skills that are worth money. They can have the networking classes, the IT classes, the coding classes versus lower income students who come to school and don't even know how to do their taxes. It's terrible.
And something, Ashley, I want to say to your point about poverty. My hometown actually just made national news recently because our mayor, this is in Ville Platte, Louisiana, she was trying to call in the National Guard to come and deal with crime in my hometown of Ville Platte. And it's about 60% African American. But when you look at the actual, the demographics, the median household income there is about $18,000 a year. $18,000 a year. And so when you look at statistically, when you look at opportunities to build generational wealth that were taken away and then never having, had any other opportunities, you end up with a town where the median income is $18,000 a year, and you're calling in the National Guard your people are bad, right? It was a threat. She's like, I'm bringing in the National Guard to control crime now. And no one looked at the fact that this is one of the poorest places like in the country. Louisiana is one of the poorest states. My hometown, like the parish, which is like it's like a county. If you guys aren't from Louisiana, is one of the poorest counties in the country. And Ville Platte is just one of the poorest places in this, entire country. And they're acting like people are bad. And that hasn't worked, right? You haven't fixed anything by just saying, these people are bad. Mm-hmm. Look at the fact that you have no jobs, you have no wages, you have, like you said, the school I went to was run down, right? Like, I didn't enjoy like going there, and I'd see like the Catholic school in the next town over where like people sent their kids so they didn't have to go to school with Black kids, right? Mm-hmm. That was a really nice school. We didn't go to that school. Our school was run down, and it was garbage. But no one ever talked about, it's not people are bad. It's circumstances are bad. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's why we wanted to make sure to have this conversation, because I mean, more people just need to be talking about this. With what happened in Georgia, it's completely unacceptable. When that video first came out, the first time I saw it was, why aren't these guys in jail immediately? And I thought that video came out right then. When you get the news that the video didn't come out, I mean, it happened, February 23rd? And it didn't start getting news headlines till now.
The DA saw it, though. He made his recommendations based on, he saw it and no one else did. He saw the video, but he still went with what these men said happened, even though he saw the video. It wasn't until he planned on probably nobody ever seeing the video.
Right.
How do you fix this police problem? How do you fix this? How do you guys think? I just want some opinions.
Well, I don't.
This justice system problem.
There's only so much policy can solve, to be honest. Racism is such a deep-rooted issue in America. There's just America, which is founded on exploitation. I mean, even from the Europeans coming to America and killing off all the Native Americans. I definitely think it starts with education and the system. We have to, I know, often people don't really discuss, there was a Black Wall Street at one point. It was in Oklahoma, and a lot of wealth was concentrated in that area. And this is something that Black people owned. And what happened? White people came in and terrorized the place because they couldn't stand to see us thriving. There's also this area of town in Houston, Texas, 3rd Ward, that had a lot of wealth in the African American community. But actually, I think an African American moved in to this predominantly white area. And they basically blew that on fire because they couldn't stand to see that person in like a white neighborhood and, with money and basically on their level. And these are things that we don't really talk about. We need to, I guess, stop talking about just how Black people have been poor all their lives and all of that. Like, there have been points in history where we've gotten somewhere, but there was, something that white people did or the government did to, hold us back some more and like put us, I guess, from the starting point. And so it's just like been a pattern. Like every time that the African Americans try to get somewhere, we're held back. But as I was saying, it starts with education. So like the Black Wall Street, that's definitely something that we should learn about. Kids in school should learn about, and how and like what happened to where like it's not there anymore.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it really is interesting.
I think we need more Black entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Was it buying the block? Something I would hear Jason say. Sorry. Go on, Genie. Your debut.
No, Piggy. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this racism, it's steeped in so far into our society that you have, the Democratic Party, the party that you feel like is supposed, since the JFK days are supposed to stand up for people of color. And you have situations like, I mean, I don't know the whole situation. I don't know if this is necessarily true, but you have like these rumors in South Bend that, Pete Buttigieg is defending the racist police officers, and that's why he fired the police chief. And you have people who don't even trust the party that's supposed to defend them. So how do you fix like this if there's like no one on the top fighting for us?
Yeah.
That's why we have to get to the top. That I feel like that's why it's time to, instead of waiting for someone to save us, we have to kind of step up and do it ourselves. It's just something that I think about this all the time. And I agree with Ashley. I think it starts with education. I think that people have to be informed, but I also feel like we do lack Black leadership. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's hard to lift and move a community forward without having like a leader that's kind of like modeling, like, or kind of like bringing people along. Like, I'll just use the example of like Martin Luther King, right? Like, he was able to create a movement. He was able to get organized and get people to like, this is how we're going to do this. And people were like, yeah, let's do it. And then they were able to do a movement, right? Malcolm X created a movement, the Black Panthers, right? So wherever you fall with the approach, that's all, relative. But I feel like for me, it's doing something. It's being active in your community. It is, if your school districts, if like your district, let's say, for example, is not getting the resources, raise hell. Show up to the board meetings, vote for down ballot candidates, write to your elected officials, hold them accountable. You know what I mean? We have to show up and just show up and be present and make it known that our voices are heard. And if you're not doing what we need to do, we're going to vote you out. And I feel like that's because like when things are happening, what do? Let's write to Congress. Let's write to the senators. Let's do these things. But if they're not listening or they're not doing it, then we need to start running ourselves. That's really where I'm at with this. And I tell Ashley all the time she should run for Congress.
You should.
Ronald,
where do you live, Ashley?
I live in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
I love Austin.
But Ashley, do I not tell you to run for Congress?
Yeah, you tell me all the time. Yeah.
Do it. You got the Yay Gang behind you. You're going to have to delete half your Twitter content, though.
I know, right?
She just restarted her Twitter.
That's true. She did. She got banned.
But like in education, like for example, I work in a private school, right? And it's predominantly white, so let's be fair. And I took the opportunity to make sure that they understood incarceration. So to teach statistics and probability, I used it from the lens of incarceration. And I cannot begin to tell you how many parents reached out to me and said, oh my God, we had no idea 1 in 3 Black boys ends up in jail. Sometimes people genuinely just don't know. And then you have people that just ignore, right? And then, so I think like that's where, as an educator, I can choose to be innovative and forward thinking with what I'm teaching my students, because even though it's not predominantly Black school, these are kids that can be informed. So when something like what just happened to Aubrey takes place, they're the ones saying, no, this is not okay. And they're going to get on board. They're going to help be a part of the movement. Like Ashley said, it's coming together. But you can't get passionate about something you don't care about. And you can't care about something you don't know anything about. So I feel like I echo the education and the running thing. And then I also feel like something else when it goes back to the police question, I feel like the body cameras and all that stuff makes a difference. But I do worry that we're becoming so numb to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like almost like I've seen that before. Like, it didn't really shock me. You know what I mean? And I do worry about that. It's like not having like that, like an impact. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. When I first heard about the Ahmaud case, it didn't really shock me. I know a lot of people, when they heard about the video, they were like, "Oh, I'm afraid to watch it. I'm afraid to watch it." And this is like so tragic. But I mean, I see videos like this all the time. And I mean, nothing gets done. We may do a few hashtags on Twitter. A politician may say something, may make a tweet or say a short sentence about it. But I mean, it still happens. I know, like in Canada, they just had a school shooting. Not a school shooting, but they had a shooting that killed like 20 people. And right away,
Canada?
they banned guns. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I did hear about that.
Yeah, and right away, they banned guns. That isn't something that happens in the United States.
No, we just, wow, look at that. And we're all mad.
It's happening so regular now. I think because it happens so regular that's another part of the problem. Like look at like we had Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown. You know, like it was just like it rolled. It's just like one after another, and it makes me think like, and it hurts me to think like, are we that bad? Like, are Black people that bad? Because I feel like the Black community is very accepting, very forgiving, and magical. I really feel that way. And I feel like we're innovative, we add value to this country in a lot of ways, from music to sports to entertainment, all these different things. And so on a personal level, it hurts me that we're not viewed as magical, because we are. And that's why I'm so grateful that you're having this conversation, because we're worth something in this world. We mean something. And I think everyone we need to shed light on what we contribute to this country too.
Mm-hmm.
So for the record, Aarika, Ronald, Genie, Ashley, you were all magical. And we completely think that. And no, I mean, honestly, like from the point of view as probably the whitest person here.
James is so white.
I know, it's so bad. I appreciate everything that you do, everything you guys bring to the table. And honestly, like I'm sitting here, like I wanted to have this conversation in part, like what can we do to help? Like what I feel like Yang Gang as a whole will get behind anything that we need to do to make an impact. Like if it means people running for Congress, like if any of y'all want to run for Congress, I just got done doing it. I didn't, win, but I learned a lot to help people, get on the ballot and actually make a big impact in a short amount of time. Whatever you guys need to do, like whatever we can build as a movement together, like we can tackle this thing together. I don't want it to be you guys just trying to go at it yourself. Like,
I mean, I think a lot of things usually get done from the outside, if I'm being honest. I mean, you start talking about MLK and Malcolm X. They weren't in Congress, but they led a movement, which was more powerful than anyone in Congress. I mean, if you look at like the Black leaders in Congress right now, you have Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. What movement are they having or leading? I mean, and a lot of people, like they talk about how, when Kamala's history is brought up, like how she was a prosecutor and how it was just her job to, lock people up for going against the law. It's like, I mean, what would she have done if slavery was still legal? Like, would she have just said,
people up?
Right? If the slaves ran away, then, prosecute them and send them back into captivity because it's the law. So, I mean, we have to stop thinking that what is in law is moral, because legality has never, ever equaled morality.
That's true.
And so, I mean, honestly, at this point, I just think the best thing we can do is make this movement from the outside. I honestly think there needs to be a huge protest. I mean, we were so passionate about getting Yang a platform and getting UBI, afloat, and everybody was knocking on doors and all of that. I mean, I feel like the Yang Gang is so passionate, and I just want to say this, this isn't just like a Black issue. We're all humans. This is a humanity issue. And this is, I mean, you should look at it as your fellow humans are suffering, and you should, care, because we're all simply human beings and going through this game of life together, and we all have an idea or know what suffering is. And, we care about UBI because we want to, end poverty and all of that. Well, I mean, Black people are going through issues too. So, I mean, let's let's do something about that. I mean, because, you know, I think UBI will do a lot for the Black community, but there is deep-rooted racism going on. It's like, I don't even know really where to start, because again, I don't really think policy can end racism.
It starts with your community, though. I think being active in your community and, you know, and fixing your community. So I think it has to start like there, and then it can build outwards, because you can't, it's almost like you can't take care of other people unless you take care of yourself, right? So I think that's where being involved in your schools and making sure that, you know, that you are keeping your neighborhood clean. Like you talked about the neighborhood, right? But I feel like if I live in a neighborhood, I have the opportunity, the choice to not litter. I have the choice to, if I see a pothole, report it, you know, so they can come in and fix it, right? So I think it has to start. Actually,
would they come to fix the pothole if they did call in the pothole? The government.
Actually, enough people, I'm gonna be honest with you, enough people in my neighborhood complained, and we just got our whole street repaved. So I'm just saying, like, but that was our community coming together and saying, like, we need better streets. We want our streets redone. Do it. And enough people got together to make that happen. And now they actually was like it was around this whole neighborhood. They redid all the streets. So my point really is you have to start with your neighborhood. We have to start with our education system, and we have to stop making.
What I would say to that is that, like, I mean, how can people, you know, come together in their community when they have to worry about, you know, making ends meet?
You can't complain. That's how I feel. Like if there's going to be an excuse to not work on something or to get together or organize to move forward, then you can't complain about the stuff that's happening. You can't, if you are actually trying to do something and you're making the effort, then you can complain. That's
Come on, Aarika. If a person is starving and having to work 60 hours a week and they're constantly worried about like getting the bills paid and getting their kids fed and, you know, getting their children in childcare, I mean, a lot of stuff takes the back seat. I mean, you know, it's again survival mode. You can't really think about, like, you know, the totality of issues, like, you know, the community, when you just have to think about yourself and your kids.
Yeah, it's like what Andrew says about, like, with climate change. How can you get anyone to care about the climate when they're trying to pay their bills, right? When they can't pay their rent. You know, so it's hard to get people to care about things outside of their survival. You know?
I'm going to push back on that, because I feel like that's the problem. I feel like we're so consumed with our own day-to-day lives that we're not thinking about the bigger picture, right? So now we're coming together right now. We all just made time to get together to address what just happened to this man, right? We could do this thing on it. We can make time. You make time for things that you care about. And if this is something that we care about, we have to make the time to do something about it. So even if that means, like, you know what, for 1 hour a week, we're going to have town halls in our neighborhood and ask our elected officials to come. Or if that means, you know, like doing a community thing, we make time for what we care about. And I care about this. And I was working full time and still knocking on doors for Andrew, because I felt really passionate. I still feel passionate about UBI, and that would make a difference in people's lives. I made time to do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't, we can respectfully disagree. I love you. You know that I love you. I don't agree with that.
I'll just say one more thing. This is also an issue that needs to be touched on. I mean, we don't talk about mental health in the Black community.
Fair.
All this mental health issues, you know, acute stress from, you know, having to constantly worried about if you're going to get evicted and if your kids are going to starve and if you're
go for a jog and get shot.
I mean, you know, a lot of people in the Black community have gone hopeless. And, you know, that's why they don't call the city to, you know, fix potholes and all of that. I mean, you know, and parents, they don't come. I mean, it's pretty common for, like, in the Black community. Well, I won't say that, but, you know, poverty causes, like, a different mindset. There's, like, the impoverished mindset. And then, like, when you're not in poverty, you have room to care about things like, you know, potholes and community meetings at the school, PTO meetings, and all of that.
I find that to be interesting, that to say that people don't care, though, because there were lots of people willing to come to the town hall that we were trying to organize, that they were excited about it. They were looking forward to it. I think we have to give the Black community a little bit more.
Well, no, I'm not saying they don't care, but I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, there's a different mindset in like between like
I understand you, Ashley.
mindset and the mindset that's not in poverty.
Scarcity versus abundance.
Yeah.
So what I think a good way to say it is, like, would it have been the energy when you knocking on doors and everything would have been a little different if you didn't have a job at all, kind of thing. If it makes sense for me. Because you said, Aarika, you said like I was working a full-time job and I was knocking doors. Like if you're worrying about not having enough money to live in your house, if you don't have enough money to eat, the energy to do these extra things a lot of times isn't there. And I'm saying that like from a point of experience. Like a couple of weeks ago, I posted a tweet like, if people are worried about like food, like they're not going to worry about stealing food if it means to feed their children. And that's kind of where the situation we're getting at, like with the whole virus thing, like on top of just systematic things that huge issues in our system that we need to fix, which I think Ashley was talking about as a system. I mean, even in the crisis right now, there are so many things that people are dealing with on a whole. And then on top of it, there's racism where you guys have to deal with that on top of it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there are so many things that we need to like help impact. And again, thank you all for joining. And then like, I really want to do something where we can make an impact as a whole, because it's completely inexcusable. Like racism, there's no.
I'm so sorry. I have to say this. So you're saying that you're saying that people don't have the time to do anything, but we need to do something.
I'm saying if you have a scarcity mindset, it is hard to do a lot of the things we're talking about. So we need to enable those people to be able to act. We need to organize in a way that gets them energized in a time where it is very, very hard to have energy. Does that make sense? Because I'm trying to come from a personal perspective. Ronald.
I can speak on that because as of right now, this is what my household is going through. It's like we know that we need 2 incomes in order for our house to stay afloat. That's rent, that's car note, not even car note. That's rent, that's car insurance, that's phone, that's everything. Our basic needs have to be met. As of right now, because of the coronavirus, how it hits Michigan so hard that I'm out of work. That's one less income that my household has, including my wife. She's working right now. She's an essential worker, so she has to be at work. And if her hours get cut or if she gets laid off, we have no income whatsoever. Even with the unemployment that I get off and on, that's not even enough for me to think about outside. I have to worry about my own household because it hurts. I mean, there's times where I would knock on the doors for Andrew Yang and then think about, man, I should have had that overtime or got that overtime just so I have enough not to worry about A, B, C, and D. And so once they started cutting back overtime, it's like, okay, I have to maximize my time. Even with me going to work full time, even with me being a full-time student, even me being a full-time parent, even me being involved in my community, even me being involved in my church. It's like there's a lot of hats that I wear in order for me and my family to be afloat. And with this COVID-19, what that does is now, again, like I said, it restricts. And a lot of people, that's where they're feeling that pinch. It's like, it's not the fact that they're not able to do it. It's the simple fact of the matter of if going one paycheck, just one, if going one paycheck puts them in a position where they're out back on the streets again, a lot of times they don't have that luxury to do A, B, C, and D because it's that one paycheck. And again, me and my family came to the agreement with our one paycheck or the 2 paychecks we have. Even if we had one, that's going to put a strain on the other to make sure we have enough money to survive. And for many places, especially here in Michigan too, a lot of people that want to be actively involved politically and involved in the community, But the one thing that I hear consistent is, I wish I had time to do this, but I know that if I take time away from my job, which I don't have, I'm not able to do this because the job I have is paycheck to paycheck, and I don't know if that next paycheck that I'm gonna get is going to cover my rent.
Ronald, what you're
Yeah.
saying is why it inspires me. You know, like I think it's inspiring because I think hearing that story, and I know other people experience the same thing, is personally what motivated me to canvas so hard and so obsessively for Andrew to get the UBI. And when you go into, Black communities or communities, low income Black communities, when you hear people say how $1,000 a month would elevate their life, would enhance their life, it is, and how they would actually use the money, it does something to you. I think that's when I say motivates me. That's where I'm coming from. Like, I can't say that I'm in your same situation. I don't have kids. I have just me, myself, and I. So yes, my circumstance allows me to do a little bit more, right? Like, you couldn't just take off and go to Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada. You were able to do that. And I do hear that. I'm also just saying, and actually I hear that. I'm just saying, we have reached a point now where so many Black people are being killed unjustly. We have to make the time to do something. That is what I'm saying. I feel like no human being should have to lose everything because they can't get a paycheck, because they're one paycheck away from their life being destroyed. It's not fair. And so I hear that. I do hear that. I'm just saying that we have to find a way to make the time to do whatever it is that we can, even if what you can do looks different than what I can do, as long as you're doing something instead of nothing. If that's voting for Andrew Yang, that's doing something, right? Because that just helps to get a little bit further.
I feel like Genie wants to say something. He's been sitting there with this look on his face that he wants to chime in, right, Genie?
No, not really. But I do want to say something though.
You keep doing that finger, so I think you want to, say something.
Thank you, Heidi. My bad, Coach Haley. I think I don't want to take this wrong, but I think Black people have grown apathetic towards politicians and politics in general. We've had Democrat after Democrat after Democrat, and obviously the Republicans are going to try to stop us. That it seems like we have this entire system where both sides are trying to step on us. And so it's kind of hard to believe that anything can actually change. So how do we help the apathy of the Black community?
Well, what Ashley was saying earlier is dead on when she was saying that maybe the solution is not relying on politicians. Maybe the solution is working on the outside. Maybe maybe she's dead on when she says that.
The funny thing is, I feel like Yang has gotten a lot done since he's been out.
Yeah, that's the perfect example. Yeah.
So, I think maybe we do put too much emphasis on, those in Congress, but I do think those people are important, very important. I think everyone plays a role. But there's things we can do from the outside as well. Like this, losing, if you run for Congress and you happen to lose a race or whatever, don't get discouraged. You have a platform now. Use it.
Right.
To be honest, I don't think they put enough emphasis on their Congress people. Most Americans, if you ask, I don't know, any of your family members who the congressman of their region is, they're not going to know.
Yeah.
I think they get away with not being known and just being a color on the ballot, whether it's a blue in a blue state or red in a red state, and they can just play this game, meanwhile taking money from both sides of the pot. Right. So how do we fix the knowledge that people have of their local government? I'm leaning more towards the organization route, but how do we do that?
Institutional trust is very low. So
true.
And I think Eller's pointing out his story similar to Ronald's, I think also shows that we have more in common than we do different, and why we should come together as people so we can get on the right track. That we're I love that Eller's actually pointed that out, that his situation, and it's their stories are very similar. It's different, but it's similar. So,
and that's something that I realize more. It's not really something that again, this is just reflecting, like, even when like white families are being like systematically oppressed in that way, we're not really taught to recognize it. So a lot of things where we're having the same issues, like I feel like I'm not giving an excuse for a lot of white people not speaking up, but I feel like if it was brought to their attention, more people would speak up, because a lot of the issues we're having, again, Ron, like I'm having similar issues, like work's pretty much gone. It's just, you know, kind of trying to figure out other things and build other organizations and go from there. And there's a lot in common. And my sympathy, like, especially is like everything that the system puts on you on top of the racism, like it's insane.
I honestly think that a lot of white people don't actually even know that they're racist. They've been so like ingrained by what they see. You know, they see the images constantly of black men on the news networks. They see the images on newspapers where it's always a mug shot. Meanwhile, when a white guy kills his family, he gets a beautiful family shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they get these images over and over again in the movies and TV shows and music videos. They get it ingrained into their system, and it doesn't come out until they see one coming in the same elevator as them. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to act. I think it's from every point of media, every point of videos. I think every time you see someone in power, racism goes down. It's not going to be gone, but it goes down a little bit.
Yeah. Ronald.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I feel like, yes, but I also feel like that things have progressed in a sense, you know, in the sense, like, you know, you have more representation in the media. And I mean, even though the people in Congress don't really do as much as we want them to do, I mean, there's them in Congress. I think this young generation is the generation that, you know, we need to focus on the most, because they are the ones who see that there is a problem and that needs to be fixed, which is why I say it starts with education at the young age. That is how you get to people. And you fix the generations for generations to come. You know, they'll pass on that knowledge to their kids, and, you know, the cycle keeps on repeating. And so, I think that education is completely important, and we need to focus on these younger generations, because the younger generation is going to be the generation that changes things. And, you know, it's about time that, you know, politicians stop disregarding like the young vote, because I mean, the young vote is going to eventually become the old vote. And I mean, they disregard us, but I mean, I feel like, you know, young people are what started the progressive movement with like Bernie. And they
didn't come out and vote for him, unfortunately. Like they didn't come out and vote for him the way that they wanted. But I think you're dead on. And I want to just add on to what you're saying. On top of that, I think we need to fix our criminal justice system. I feel like, you know, the war on drugs had a huge, profound impact on the Black community. The incarceration rates, the bail bond system has to be addressed. The marijuana situation has to be completely, like, all those people in prison right now during the coronavirus that are dying. You know, it's just incompletely. It's like it's just inhumane. So I feel like that's another thing that's really hurting the Black community.
Another thing, I just looked it up, and there are 24 Democratic governors in the United States today. Almost all of them have the power to, with one executive order, let all nonviolent drug offenders out of prison. So why don't they? Why are they able to just hide in their house and let them?
I mean, the prison system is a for-profit organization, and unfortunately, they need a certain quota to be able to make an investment on their investment in the prison system. Which is unfortunate, but I mean,
it shouldn't exist.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're not like pro the prison industrial complex, but there is no reason that should even exist. That is insane to have a profit motivation to put people in jail.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that they need to have a quota.
And they're looking at high schools to figure out how many prisons they actually have to build to like they're like always forward thinking about it too. Like how many kids Black kids or Black boys are we going to be able to need to fill this prison up? It's completely, it's such a business. It's so horrible. It's so horrible.
Wow.
You know, I want to add on to that too, because there was a documentary I watched on Netflix about 2-3 years ago, and it talked about that. It talked about how and why the so-called war on drugs came into being, and it talked about how,
Is it called 13th?
I think so.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't watched it, that's a good one. And it talked about that. And it talked about how these private for-profit prisons were springing up just so they could kind of quote-unquote cover it up. But at the same time, a lot of people pointed that the actual government, who's supposed to be serving us or supporting us, they're the ones that actually got this going. And there was this little small clip in there too, and it's funny how things turn around. It's this little small clip where Donald Trump, back in his younger days, where he was talking, and he was asked if he had to run for president, what party would he run under?
I saw that.
He said the Republican Party, due to the fact that they really don't think for themselves. They more so think about the dollar, bottom line, versus the actual people. And he said, if I could get in there and sway a thinking just enough, I'm good. And here we are right now underneath this man's 4 years presidency, and not a lot of things have changed for the better. A lot of it has changed for the worse, and a lot of it, if everything is left unchecked and goes the same route, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
To be honest, I think the American people are tired of peaceful protests. I think we need something like, you've seen those riots out there when people can't get a haircut nowadays.
Shit.
We need that outside of every government
Yeah.
until we get our people out of prison.
I mean, at this point, I
They
think
can do it. They have to.
They're doing it, you know?
I mean, at this point, I see riots as inevitable, mainly due to COVID, because
People are starving.
the economy has been like hanging on by a thread for the longest. And, you know, COVID-19 has only exposed it even more. And I mean, of course, like everybody is affected by COVID-19, but I mean, it's obviously disproportionately affecting Black people the most. And so I think that's inevitable because, I mean, again, like when people don't have food to eat and are starving, they don't just sit by and just let themselves starve.
Yeah.
That's just not like how humans work. So, I mean, if Congress doesn't pass a UBI, and I mean, I think, I mean,
they're going to have the riots. Yeah.
I have a question to you guys. Do you guys think the COVID-19 death numbers are actually accurate? Because we have a whole bunch of people who wouldn't who get sick, get this, cough, pain, and don't go to the hospital because they don't have insurance.
Oh yeah, the numbers are much higher than they're showing, because I know a few people who say their doctor told them not to go to the hospital or to the doctor's office because they likely have COVID-19, but it would be no use going to the hospital unless like they started having breathing troubles that were making it lethal.
Yeah, agreed. And again, just to kind of piggyback off of that too, here in Michigan, I mean, you take Detroit, which is predominantly African American, and that's one of the major cities that's been hit the hardest the most. And my mom, she told me about her friend that lives out there whose fiance, he died like no less than 2 days after him getting it. And it's that scary thought of, okay, if I don't have insurance and I go, even though the government has said that it's supposed to be free, yet I go get checked to get the test and everything else, and yet I still got a $21,000 plus bill to pay because I got checked out. What was the point for me going in the first place? If the results came back and says like, hey, I'm going to die, I'm not going to go because I know I might die. And again, I may not die, but I might get it again, and those symptoms are going to be worse than when I got it the first time. And so it's that scary thing, that scary thinking that one way or another, if I have insurance, if I don't have insurance, am I going to go? Should I go? Should I not go? Or am I going to go and get turned away because my symptoms are not quote unquote severe enough for them to see me? Like, this is my life that is on the line. I only have one life to live. And if I want to enjoy the longevity of my life, I need to seek that medical attention.
I feel like the government doesn't understand that history constantly repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
The economy, people aren't going to starve. If the economy gets bad enough, we will see what happened with the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution. We're going to see that over and over again, and nobody sees it coming. But for some reason, it's going to shock the hell out of everyone.
I feel like they're starting to see it because Nancy Pelosi is legit talking about UBI now. Mm-hmm. And if you asked me just 3 months ago if I thought she would ever come around on it, absolutely not. I would not have thought that. So
yes, it seems to be like a pattern in history because, I mean, when you think about it, there's been a whole century since the Great Depression years. But I guess something, good to look forward to is like after the Great Depression years, or like after every major event in history, I mean, something good comes out of it. Because, after the Great Depression, the New Deal passed, which got minimum wage and Social Security and all of that. I think UBI is the next, New Deal. I think UBI is definitely inevitable at this point.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I definitely agree with that. I absolutely agree with you, Ashley, on that. I think that's why Yang is so significant, because after he's suspended, he's kept speaking to his policies, and he's the only candidate that has policies that can be used in the pandemic. And I feel like, and then him actually obviously the whole New York lawsuit and everything, I feel like he's really helped keep the pressure on our government to do something for us. And I think that going back to what we were saying earlier about education in the Black community, I think it's really also important to address that even after this is all said and done, it's going to be a lot more challenging, I think, for Black people to recover from this, because we were already in a bad position pre-COVID. So I feel like that UBI is going to be the biggest safety net for the Black community. And I'm praying that this gets passed. And I think we've all been pushing for the 2,000, not the 1,000 that we initially were for the campaign. But I think that if this gets passed, I think that's going to definitely save the Black community.
I agree totally. Just due to the fact that, again, the majority of your essential workers, they're African Americans, and a lot of them, they take those low-paying jobs because they know that it's a paycheck. It's something to put food on my table. And with that UBI getting passed, especially if it's $2,000 a month per adult household, it's going to alleviate so much stress. It's going to alleviate the scarcity mindset, and especially in Andrew Yang's book, The War on Normal People. I don't read that book. It's so good. And it's so profound because a lot of the stuff, stuff. I'm reading it too. It's on my entertainment system. But a lot of the stuff that he talked about in that book, slowly but surely, you've seen it portrayed right now before our eyes. And a lot of people, I know they're kicking themselves in the foot. I know they probably shot themselves in the foot twice over. It's like, man, what this man was saying is so true, especially now because of the fact that a lot of these jobs, they're not going to be open. A lot of these jobs, they're going to be closed for sure.
They're not coming back.
And if they do come back, more than likely, you're going to see automation take root. It's going to hurt a lot.
And we can't have this conversation and not address, going back to Ashley's constantly bringing up education, that a lot of kids are doing the remote learning now. And a lot of these low-income schools, these kids did not have the resources that they needed to be able to make that transition. And that widens the achievement gap. And that's a big issue that I think that we have to figure out how we're going to recover from that, because now, like, if you're in like the summer, right? Usually you lose a year and a half of your reading or math skills, typically, right? But you've been out of school for this whole time. So that achievement gap right now that's being created is insane. And they were talking about this actually on The View, I think yesterday or the day before, that the solution now is going to hold back a year just to make sure that they're caught up. So we saw in a pandemic that low-income schools were not set up to be able to transition as quickly as schools like mine that, are affluent and have the resources. And I think that's another reason why UBI is so important, because if you were in that situation, you could then go out and potentially buy a cheaper computer to be able to do the Zooming and the Google Classroom and all those kind of things. So we have to think about how people would have used UBI in this pandemic, and it wouldn't just been, it would have been in all sorts of ways.
Agreed, because I know when we got that first stimulus check, I made sure that I got my kid, all three of my kids, they have laptops, because I knew that the school system that the school system that I'm in, they were not adequately ready to hand out those Chromebooks. I mean, even my wife, she went and talked to the people like, hey, when do we sign up for these Chromebooks? When do we sign up for these Chromebooks? It took them almost 2-3 weeks to let us know, hey, we got Chromebooks. I'm like, that extra time that I went ahead and got them, I am thankful that I did, because that means that would have put my kids that much farther behind than their classmates, let alone the area that we're in. And so it's like, yes, the need for UBI is so critical, if not before, because had that stimulus check not come in, I'm almost willing to bet my bottom dollar nobody would have been able to see their kids succeed at any kind of level.
And you have people filing for unemployment that are getting denied, so they can't even get the unemployment, and that's also a huge problem. So that's why I'm grateful for everyone in the Yang Gang, Andrew, because putting pressure on the $2,000 a month, because it is so incredibly important. It really is. And back to the education piece, you have parents that don't know how to even teach their kids, right? So even if you don't even have the resources and stuff, you're like, if I'm a parent, like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? I don't know too many parents that can teach their kids, if let's say they're in my math group, like algebra 1 or 2. I have kids actually learning trig. So it's like, that's another issue too. So parents, this was a whole thing. The lack of resources in our schools is something that Andrew was really pushing for, and it kind of underscores why we need to make sure that teachers have resources. Because the way that our school said, okay, we're going to be moving to distant learning, every single one of my kids had books, they had crayons, they had markers, they had like bags, poster boards, clay, you name it. They pretty much played. They had Hamlet, 2 versions of Hamlet. They had all kinds of stuff to take home, and they haven't missed a beat, to be honest. So I feel really, really bad for kids that weren't able to make that transition.
I'm very worried that school won't even start in August, because the way the government is opening the country up, like suddenly, even though COVID is definitely not under control at all. It's like, how will colleges and how will schools deal with that, since like kids will be concentrated in one area? I'm worried that this will even affect this coming semester. I mean, I hope not, but
it's funny.
To specifically Black kids or anything, but I think all kids. What I also am worried about is it increased their addiction to social media and their devices.
Yep.
Like, I will have Zoom sessions with my students, and I could totally tell they're texting, and I could see like this is their form of entertainment now. I am nervous about the addiction, the video games, and all this stuff that's going to escalate because of them not being in schools. So instead of recess, you're playing soccer and this and stuff and all that stuff. Now you're at home, you can't do anything. So you're doing Minecraft or whatever the games are that they're playing.
And it's funny you guys brought that up too, because I told my kids that don't anticipate going back to school this semester, due to the fact that we don't have a good handle in it. I can speak for my state of Michigan, quite frankly, because we're always looking at the numbers. And a lot of times those numbers yes, they seem to kind of go down a little bit, but there's certain counties they start spiking up left and right. And I told them, like, look, if they mess around and say, hey, we're going back to school come August, and there's no vaccine, there's no workable vaccine, and we know there won't be a workable vaccine until next year. I told them, don't look about going to school, because I don't want you guys to go to school and one of your classmates messes around, has COVID, passes it to you guys, and now we're stuck in the hospital with the complication of you got COVID. How are we going to handle that? You know, it's a scary thought. And I told them, like, look, I love you guys and I will die for you guys. But at the same time, I will make sure that you guys are protected, even if it means I have to homeschool you guys. So be it. I have to do that because as a parent, that's my main priority, is to make sure that you guys are safe and make sure that you guys get the best education possible so that you do not fail. You do not fail, that you do not fall in my footsteps, that you do not fail, that you go and you go above and beyond and do what you want to do. Like my son, he wants to be a robotics engineer. He said that he wants to build Gundams. He wants to be the first black person to build Gundams. I said, go for it. My daughter, she said she wants to be a veterinarian.
Awesome.
Go for it. Like my youngest, he wants to be a football player. Like, but dude, think about something else. What else do you want to do? He said, well, I don't know what else I want to do. Maybe I want to follow in the footsteps of my brother. Maybe I want to follow in the footsteps of my sister. Like, go for it. The world is out there for you. I'm just trying to get you the opportunities to get that, because when I'm dead and gone, when your mom's dead and gone, when your aunties and your uncles are dead and gone, it's going to be you guys, and you guys have to stick together. You guys have to fight for each other to make those things possible, because I can teach you so much. After that, it's on you guys. And so this conversation is so much needed. Yes.
Awesome.
You're brought me to tears. I'm an emotional person. I'm a sentimental person. But I think that's the thing that hurts me the most within with all these different things that are impacting the Black community, is that Black parents just want their kids to have a fair chance, but the reality is it's not fair. It's not fair. And even I like to think, I consider myself to be very accomplished. I still feel like I'm not treated always the same in the working environment. And, there's other things that, we have to think about when we're making decisions or when we're talking, and we like to feel accepted or to be taken seriously. And you want when you said their dreams, it's one, it reminded me of like why I became a teacher, and two, like I think Genie brought this up earlier about like entrepreneurs and stuff. You want our kids to feel like they can like just do whatever they want, their heart's desires. Like if they had the UBI, for example, and I heard this all the time when I was canvassing for Andrew, a lot of people said that they would just start their own business, like the Black-owned businesses. And like, I would open my own hair salon. I would open my own barbershop. I would open my own this. I would do this. I would have my own soul food. You heard that all the time. And that $1,000 a month that Andrew was pushing would completely allow Black people to flourish in a way that we haven't seen in our lifetime.
Yes.
Like when Genie, I'm so glad that he brought that up, because we cannot have this conversation and not talk about how hard it is for Black people to get a loan, a business loan. Sorry, go ahead, Ronald. I'll let you take it.
And it's funny too, because even when that video of those two the guys in Harlem, they went around and was passing out $1,000 to everybody. That solidified everything that game was talking about.
Yeah.
And especially those young single mothers who said that, here, this is the money for you to go play soccer. This is the money for you to do this. This is the money for you to do that. I'm not going to start just one business. I'm going to start two businesses. I can have this for real. This is for me. This is what Andrew A wants to do for me. It sends shockwaves. It sends tangibles that you give people money and let them figure out what they want to do. The possibilities are endless. The sky is not just the limit; it can go past the limit. I mean, it's just the simple fact
And
of
when
the matter.
people got their stimulus checks, when people got their stimulus checks now, the reaction we saw on Twitter and stuff, we saw it like, oh my God, like I got this. Wow, and I don't owe the government anything. Like it kind of showed like, yes, this is what Andrew was talking about. Because when Ashley spoke to like, there's a distrust in the government. Like, what do you want from me? What do I owe you for this? It became that. Now they got something. They got the $1,200. Not I didn't get it, but other people got it. But it's like, I saw people say, oh, wow, like this would benefit my life. Well, oh, now I can do this or I can do that. So I think it kind of took away like this, you can't make that happen. That's not possible. The government showed it's possible. They showed that there's money.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, a lot of times, like when people try to like debate against UBI and say, you know, the government shouldn't have to give you everything. It's just like, these are our taxes we're putting into the government.
It's yours. The government's money is your money, quite literally.
Exactly. Like we just gave our tax dollars like to, you know, to bail out all these businesses, $2 trillion, I believe, or $3 trillion. And it's like, so why are you guys okay with that and not getting that money for ourselves?
I think the figure was like, if they would have gave cash payments to every American with like all this money they've spent so far, they would have given every adult in the country like $13,000 if it would have just went to Americans versus all of these corporate bailouts and
And with and something that's fact is that now you have people depending on food banks right now, and you know, and they can't keep up with this demand and need to be able to just eat because 26 plus million people lost their jobs. And that's what Andrew was trying to say is that this would completely eradicate poverty. You know, it would people wouldn't be standing out in lines just wanting to put food on the table at this point, right? So that reoccurring payment needs to happen. Congress, this has to get passed.
Exactly.
And something we have to also watch for is when the economy does start opening up, like a lot of these low wage jobs have been automated away or they're just not being hired back. And we have a grace period right now. Everybody's suffering together, right? But the fact is, after we reopen up again, a lot of people will not be able to go back to work. And you only have a little bit of time before it's your fault. Before there's no more grace period, before anyone feels sorry for you anymore, before it is now on you again. So it is really extra like important to get this UBI because there's going to be a lot of people. And then a lot of these jobs or these companies shut down and they laid off their employees, they're going to hire people back at minimum wage. And they're going to hire them back with as few benefits as possible. So if you worked somewhere and you got to the point where you were making $14 an hour, try going back now. They're going to be like, hey, you get $7. They're going to be hiring fewer people and they're going to be hiring them as cheaply as they can. And then, like, you know, the economy's back open again. Why aren't you working? Right. And to me, that's going to fall on Black communities. They're going to say, why aren't you guys working? Economy's back open. Everything's great. Go back to work. You know, so we have to like keep that in mind is that like, we're going to be asshole. Like people are going to be super assholes soon once, you know, things are back open again.
That's literally some of the strategies in these states is where they'll open it back up, quote unquote, get their jobs offered back to them at, just like you're saying, like
a discount.
A discount. And if you don't take your job back, then you are
it's your fault.
Forced off unemployment.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
And there's no more sympathy for you anymore, you know?
And the jobs are never going to be, it's like you said, it's not going to be the same. And automations, now jobs are like, well, automation, I think is going to come faster. It was already coming, but now it's going to be like, well, if this ever happens again, you know, like, I think that work is going to look a lot differently. And going back to education, now we have to completely revamp how we're going to educate kids because the skills that they need for just the jobs that are around now these skills are not going to be as useful.
Guys, I saw this movie recently. Well, not recently. Back the movie theaters were open. This movie called Hustlers. You know, the movie about a bunch of strippers who were robbing people and things like that.
What was
And
it
the
called?
movie, Hustlers. I think J-Lo's in it, Cardi B, and
Yeah.
and the whole movie is based around the 2008, economic crash.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and it was used to show sympathy for all of these people who are out of work. The wages were lowered. I think as we keep going through economic crisis after economic crisis, the narrative of the economy is going to shift towards the people, kind of like how it was around the time of the New Deal. So I don't think it's always going to be this, greed is good 1980s mentality for long. It's just a bunch of boomers and a bunch of, no offense to the boomers, or a bunch of Fox News anchors pushing this theory of, greed is good. It's winner take all. Eventually, that narrative will shift.
So the thing with that, I agree.
Oh, my bad.
No, okay.
Not you guys.
No, I know. No, I agree with what you're saying, and I want to stress that we need to push the narrative in that direction as much as possible, because there are groups and companies and people on the other side of that where they benefit when the narrative is what it is right now. So they're going to push back on, switching the narrative to humanity first. So that's one thing. Like, again, when you talk about taking action, when, getting together and getting things done, like, we need to continue pushing it in that direction. Like the $2,000 a month, the reason the logic behind the $2,000 a month stimulus is like, okay, we need a higher UBI for the crisis. And then after the crisis, it could be lowered to a permanent UBI, and then it won't go away versus, incremental checks. And this is, it applies to everything we're talking about, right? Like everything we feel like we need to change, we can't just assume that it's going to happen regardless just because the crisis is bad enough. Like we saw what happened in 2008. We kind of hoped they would learn from it, but it's not that long past that, and we're running into a lot of the same issues. So like I really, really want us to take a lot of action, and any ideas you guys have on this, like I'm completely open to whatever action y'all want to do. I just want to, talk about what needs to change and also make sure to push in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think that the general consensus is education, and without education, you can't build anything. Like, for instance, like if you want to build a house, you want to build a sturdy house. Let me take that back. If you want to build a sturdy house, you want a good, solid foundation to build upon. Because when life happens and when storms hit that house, no matter what's going to happen because of that foundation, it's going to stay there. And even if the house breaks down, because of that foundation is still there, you can still rebuild again. And with that education as that foundation, you can rebuild as many times as you want to, in hopes that the next time you rebuild, it's stronger than what it was the last time. And I feel as though that the lack of involvement from our community leaders, the lack of involvement from our congressional members, not being active, it hurts, because we only see their face when they want our votes. It's like, no, I don't want to see your face every 4 years. I want to see your face on how you're going to help address the low wage in our neighborhoods. I want you to pass laws, or at least put them on the floor, as far as saying, hey, we need to shorten up this gap between this neighborhood and this neighborhood, because this neighborhood does not have the adequate funding it needs to compete with this other neighborhood, even if it's on the other side of the tracks. We need to have more accountability from our congressional members to say, hey, you need to step your game up. And like Ashley and Aarika and Genie has said, they need to be held accountable. And if not, they need to get voted out and put fresh faces in, due to the fact that they see what's going on, they understand what's going on, and because they see and they understand, they still are able to say, hey, I don't like this bill because it doesn't pertain to my neighborhood, or doesn't pertain to the community that I'm and I got elected to serve. And if you want my initials or if you want my vote, I'm gonna need you to change this paragraph, this paragraph, and this paragraph, so it doesn't benefit those big dollar lobbyists. It benefits the people that put you in the seat in the first place. And if you're not gonna do that, I'm gonna write my own, put it on the floor, so that way, if you want my vote, you sign this. And then maybe there may be a little quick pro on there. I might do something for you, but again, if there's no accountability, if there is no, hey, let's get together, let's see what I can do to help you guys out, if that's not on the table, then yes, get them out, put fresh faces in.
Yeah, I honestly think there needs to be protests. Like, and I don't mean just like itty bitty protests or anything like that, but I mean, I think everyone from every single race needs to come together and protest. I mean, it's quite interesting that, you know, people like Gavin Newsom from California are getting a lot of popularity right now. It's like the homelessness rate in California is disgusting. Like, you know, there are streets and streets of people who are living in tents. It's like, you know, why? I mean, COVID, of course, is important, but this should cause this is important too. Poverty, important. Like I just feel like, you know, praising people for doing the bare minimum, it's just like, it's about time we stop doing that and, you know, focus on things that matter. I think we've just become numb to things like poverty and homelessness. And we're not, I mean, and because of that, maybe that's why we're not holding these officials to accountability. So yeah,
It's funny that you say homelessness, Ashley, because literally, like, we were talking to people and they were saying that when I was asking, like, would UBI have impacted or prevented you from experiencing homelessness? And many people said yes. It's that one unexpected bill or that one unexpected emergency thing that put them at financial ruin. And that's where UBI would have made a big difference. Like, if you're like, I heard this multiple times about car. Like, if my car breaks down and I can't afford to get it fixed, now I can't go to work. And if I can't go to work, it's just kind of like it's like a domino effect. So I love the fact that you just brought up homelessness, because it is a huge, huge issue. And that UBI, here we go again, would have prevented a lot of that. It's just true. Ashley, you run for Congress, girl.
I'll vote for you. If I see your name on the ballot in Michigan, I will vote for you.
Oh,
yes.
We'll move to Austin and just set up a yang there and just vote for you.
Exactly.
There you go.
And can we just acknowledge that Ashley is super young and super bright and dynamic and extraordinary? And I think when I think of like young people, you actually make me feel old all the time. I just don't ever tell you that.
How old are you, Ashley?
I'm 20. How old are you, Aarika?
I'm 34.
Okay.
He says on my Twitter, he'll say, I wish you were my teacher. I'm like, girl.
Yes.
I'm the adult here, apparently.
There's like people like Ashley who are young and smart and active. I feel like give me hope that they're like, you have young people in their 20s, their early 20s doing something. Heidi, I think we're in Ellers. I think we're all in the same. I think we're in our.
I'm the oldest person here by far.
Genie, how old are you?
Who, me?
Genie, how old are you?
Oh, Genie?
Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm 23.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of cool to see that, like, we have young people that care and passionate that are like speaking up to these issues, and that's something I've always admired about. I know Ashley more than I know Genie. No offense, but I'm just speaking to her because I just know her well. But she, like, and it gives me hope that, you know, that the next generation is going to pick up the baton and, you know, keep making progress, you know. And it's just so touching. So Ashley, thank you for being an inspiration.
Yeah, thank you, Aarika.
Definitely speak beyond your years. I not saying you look older than 20, but I thought you were older than 20.
Oh my God.
So.
Guys.
she's really young, and that her intelligence it's she's special. Very special person.
But yeah, I think, all of this, it starts with, the youth. Like, it's the youth. It's like, they are going to be the ones that teach their children, and then go on, their children will teach, their children, and all of that. All the issues we're talking about, we need to talk to, like, these are the issues that they need to learn about. It's like Black issues. You ask, like, how to, move forward with, like, Black issues. Well, we need to educate, like, starting from, like, kindergarten or first grade or whatever. Like, tell them, like, all of the history, and not just, blueprints. Just certain parts of history. Especially about, like, African American history. I recently read the Frederick Douglass autobiography, Narrative of a Slave. These are the kind of books that I feel like all people should read. They are not, PG or whatever, but slavery wasn't PG. People need to know, like, what all went down during slavery, because, even there are a lot of people who even don't know, like, the lengths slavery went to. It's brutal.
Telling the truth. We have to start telling the truth and stop trying to water down what happened. And that's not just with, within African, like, with slavery and stuff, but that's what happened to the Native Americans. I feel like we have to start speaking the truth and stop watering down our education. And kids actually are smarter, they're more capable and smarter than we give them credit for. I always tell my students, like, you guys are so, you're, like, able to do things that we weren't able to do, because you guys have different resources and the times have changed. Like, and they will, if you give them the opportunity, they will thrive. They will flourish. Like just going back to the incarceration presentations and the math stuff that we were doing in class, like, they took that so seriously. And they were so passionate about it, that because I loop with my students every year, so I have the same kids for 2 years. Even this year, one of the girls chose to do a presentation on how solitary confinement impacts the brain and vision. And then she actually just brought it back up again, saying, man, it feels like, now I understand the impact of not being able to go out. I'm just in my house. I have a nice house. But imagine being in a 4-wall cell. So now she has that sense of, like, compassion and empathy and perspective. So I think, Ashley, like what you guys are saying is, like, we have to tell the truth. The kids need to learn the truth. I actually tried to show roots in my class once. I tried to get parent permission slips to show roots in 5th grade. Like,
oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Aarika, you are crazy. I was like, well, what's wrong with that?
We're ready for that.
You know what's a good movie that I saw back in middle school was Amistad. That movie, if anybody has not seen it, I suggest watching that, because that in itself, it basically encompasses everything of what happened during the slavery times, and how these slaves, before they were brought to America, how they were fighting to be free. And the one guy said, I just kept saying, give us free, give us free. And that's the one thing I do believe that is still echoing in the communities now, is that we still don't feel free. In a sense, we still feel enslaved to something. And only thing we want to do is be free to do what we want to do, be free to do what we need to do, and be free to speak on certain things, so that it does not happen again. And again, the general consensus is that education, and without that education, there's no foundation. If there is no foundation, there's no change whatsoever.
I just saw a comment from Trumper for Yang. He was like, we need to get young people to vote. And again, that goes back to people just being young people especially, just being apathetic to politics. I know that I talk to a lot of young people. I talked to a lot of young people about Andrew Yang, and they were not involved in politics. I think it's because, they, when young people become apathetic, that's how you know there's a problem. because I mean, it's usually like the older people who are who are apathetic, but it's become our young people. So, you know, if young people are apathetic already at a young age, then, you know, what becomes of the country? Like, I don't know how to, you know, get that. I think we need a leader, a candidate that young people can get excited about before, because I know Barack Obama, he brought a lot of young people out. I don't see any candidate, you know.
People were excited about Andrew. I think young people were excited about Andrew.
Yeah.
I know a lot of young people were. The problem was just like exposure. I feel like Andrew Yang could have definitely been the one to excite young people. Like, he just has that vibe. Like, I know from the very first debate that I watched of him, I was just like, this dude is different. He's bringing up data too. Like, I don't know. There was just something different about him. His answers were not polished, like a typical politician. And I was just like, I like this guy. Let me go look him up. And, you know, I ended up falling in love. This dude has, you know, what's it called? He's charming in his own way. Like, he's not, like, he's like a nerdy kind of charming. Like, he doesn't try to be anyone he's not. Like, he, you know, tells his dad jokes from time to time. And then he still wears his hat on his jacket. He's just very real. Like, he keeps it real. I guess that's the thing that, you know, really got me. He keeps it real. He's very empathetic. And so, I definitely think Andrew Yang was the candidate to excite young people. Joe Biden, I'm sorry, he just
no. And in Iowa, Andrew won the youth straw poll, which is not youth that can vote; it's school age kids. So in 2024, a lot of those kids are going to be voting. So if Andrew's in the race again, I think Andrew has the youth vote.
Yeah. I mean, he's gaining a lot of popularity, like, you know, ever since he dropped out of the race. Like, this dude has, like, been on every headline.
Yeah. I am, like, the coolest person to my 13-year-old nephew. He's like, you know Andrew Yang? Yeah, I do. Nobody else thinks I'm cool but a 13-year-old.
Yeah, a lot of my students are Yang Gang. A lot of my school is Yang Gang, but, like, a lot of my students, like, we talked about the caucus and, like, how that works. And then we had, like, different candidates, and I'm just gonna say Andrew's corner was pretty full.
Nice.
You know, it's funny because I know when Andrew was young, I was talking to my oldest son. He's really not, like, into politics, but his name had got brought up. Like, I'm campaigning for him. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. So at school, he went ahead on his computer at school and did some research. He said, dude, Andrew Yang is probably one of the persons that if I could vote for him, I'll vote for him just based on the fact that he wants to give people money. And mind you, he's at the time he's 12, he's 13 now. He said, give people money? I'm like, yeah. He's like, he wants to give people $1,000 a month. Like, you know, by the time you hit 18, and yes, you're gonna probably be in school, getting out of school, you're gonna be able to get that $1,000. Like the look of I'm gonna get $1,000 for the rest of my life. Like, for real? Like, dude, yes, you're gonna get $1,000 for the rest of your life until whatever happens. But still, yes, that's what he wants to do. He's like, dude, he said, Dad, whatever you can do, go out and make sure you vote for him. Go out and do what you got to do to make sure he's president. Like, I still have my yard sign in my yard. I got my bumper sticker on my car just due to the fact, like, the message that he brought, like you said, Ashley, it's so real. It's so raw. And it's compelling because there's nobody else on the campaign trail or was on the campaign trail that brought that excitement that Aarika said. There's nobody else that had that fire of, yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to wear my Yang Gang shirt, my Yang Gang hat, my hoodie, whatever the case may be.
At his rallies and everything, it's like all of us knew, like, everything he would say next, you know, about
oil,
zero,
technology.
Yeah, like, it's like he was like, you know, a musician like we knew the words to his his speech.
He never got tired of hearing it. Like in
Exactly.
Iowa, at the end, I was hearing it 5 times a day. I was like, even offering, like, "Boss, you want me to get this one?" You know, like I got it memorized, and I would just I'd hear it 5 times a day, and it never got old. So.
Exactly. And I guess another thing that I want to point out, like a lot of people, I hear they're like, you guys just want to check. It's just money. Like money isn't going to do anything. Like you guys are just campaigning for Yang to get a check. Yes, we are, because money isn't just money on the surface. Money can get you food. Money can help you start a business. Money can be the difference between getting evicted and getting not evicted. Money can be the difference between getting your kids into after school programs so that they can exceed.
Summer camp, session for summer camp.
Yes, exactly.
And like he said, disposable income allows you to run for office, so we can have more people that look like us in office.
That's it. And it's funny you brought that up too, Aarika, because I remember, I don't know if he said it in his book or if he talked about it, but he said that the main reason why a lot of African Americans could not come out to the canvas for him was due to the fact they did not have that disposable income to do so. And because of the fact that kind of hurt a lot, that kind of hurt his exposure to the African American community, because there wasn't enough of us to be out there and say, hey, this is Andrew Yang, this is his platform, this is what he wants to do. But besides all of that, he wants to give you $1,000 per month. There wasn't a lot of that, and I believe that, like I said before, I believe that had he had that exposure and had he had that platform to be able to talk to the African American community, I honestly do believe he would have still been in this race. And not only that, but he would be our 46th president of the United States. Like, full fledged.
I think what we can learn about this election is like the black vote matters. Like if you can get the black vote, then you win. Look at
South Carolina.
Like in the early states, he lost all states. Nobody thought he had a chance. He got to South Carolina. He showed up with that black vote, and ever since then, he's now basically the nominee.
Yeah.
And so Yang needs to hit hard in the black community. He cannot
say that again so all the Yang Gang members can hear that after.
Yang needs to go hard in the black community.
I said that to him after Iowa.
Say that in the back. I don't think the people in the back heard you.
I was talking to a bunch of older black people in my family. Well, obviously they're black, but I was talking to them, and as I was explaining it to them, I'm explaining this thing to them. I noticed that they were just so unbelieved, apathetic towards this. Like they didn't never thought it could happen. That's one thing. I think that's the difference between the black people who voted for Yang or Bernie, or the black people who voted for Biden.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And it kind of makes sense because they're names that they're familiar with. They're names that they can associate with. Like, I know a lot of people say, well, why did you vote for Barack? And I'm like, well, I'll be honest, I vote for him because he was black. Like, why not? Have the first black president of the United States? Come on now. But even besides that, as I kind of peeked through his little portfolio of plans that what he wanted to do, a lot of it were game changers. I remember struggling trying to find health insurance, and when Obamacare rolled out, it was like, that makes sense. Like, you make sure that everybody has health insurance, so they don't miss work, so that way they can go to work, still get a paycheck, and still be able to live. Like, that's smart. If the number one thing that a lot of people were struggling with was health insurance, you give them a platform where they could get affordable health insurance. They have no other issue to worry about. They can build up from there. They can go ahead and do what they need to do for their families. And so that there was very transformative. And again, it just goes back to what we were all talking about. Had Yang had that same exposure to the black community as a whole, I honestly do believe that a lot of things that happened wouldn't have happened. And I also want to put the media on blast too, because they're the ones that, they're the ones that kind of tripped them up the hardest because they didn't take him serious. They thought he was a joke. They thought that he didn't have a chance. And a lot of the polls that he plays very high in, it didn't come out until after the fact. So like, well, wait a minute now, hold up. You need to tell me that this long shot candidate actually plays higher than most established candidates, and yet you're still not going to give him no play.
That should have been all over the news.
And again, you would have thought it'd been over the news, but guess what? The news says, nah, we're not going to. But here we go. We fast forward now, months later. Guess who's name getting talked about now?
Do you all remember when we were working on the town hall?
Yes.
And we were like literally listing all the media channels that we wanted Andrew to go on to speak to issues that are impacting the Black community. Y'all remember that?
Yeah.
I really think next time we need to get him that list. Like really make sure he hits up those platforms because I feel like he is so real, and when he's on him, he like speaks truth. Like he like says what he thinks. But I think that's something that we need to really push for 2024.
Agreed.
It's funny. It's like
early on.
I believe in the narrative of the media, the media blackout that would have helped him, or the mass exposure. But then we got to voting season and we saw what happened to Pete. He had all of the perfect storm of stuff to make it happen, and he gets Iowa, then he just falls apart.
It's mainly because he couldn't get the Black vote.
Yeah, he was. I don't even know why anybody took him seriously. He was never going to have the Black vote. So it's just like, are we even going to pay attention to Iowa? Come on,
exactly. Yeah, so I think that should be Yang's main goal next time. You need to hit hard in the Black community. UBI is a policy that could change the Black community's life, and you need to, hit it hard. South Carolina, you matter. We put too much emphasis on Iowa. I think now we can say that was like Iowa. It's like it doesn't even represent the demographic of America. I mean, it's like what
2024 is going to be a whole different beast. 2024 is going to be a different beast because now
he is now on the national stage. Yeah, but he was fighting to get there.
But the dynamics of politics is going to be very, very different than this time around. And we're coming off of a pandemic and all this stuff. It's just going to be different people running, different issues that we are combating. I feel like which I'm sure he's doing, is going to have a really strategic approach. And if UBI gets passed, I just feel like 2024 is going to be just a whole different animal. But we're ready for it.
Agreed. And I'm hoping, because I know I saw Zach and Matt show, they posted a little albums, and I'm hoping that they're paying attention to and understanding that.
I'm not doing that.
Yes, you are.
And understanding that when you get Black voters involved, especially young Black voters involved and passionate about something, they're going to tell their friends and they're going to spread that like wildfire. And it's going to change. Like Aarika said, in 2024, it's going to be a total beast, because after these next 4 years, it's going to be like, okay, the narrative has changed. UBI is I see that UBI is on the forefront. What are you going to bring next to the table? And I do believe that Yang has the best platform to make it.
Yeah. He's probably going to do this. I mean, he would have to do this, assess what's going on in the country and figure out how he's going to, move us forward. But I do think with running against a Republican, a new Republican is going to be a different kind of, beast. You have the media is going to be different in how they cover that. So I think if we get some of our UBI candidates like Jermaine and Heidi and Jonathan into office, I think then you have more surrogates speaking on behalf of him. I think it's going to be really interesting. And I do appreciate Ellers. I think we have to give him a little bit of credit
Ellers is the man.
He does a lot of researching and setting up and supporting people that are running for office with just resources, sharing his experience. He's created a whole like platform really just to support the movement. And he understands like things, like he knows how to just get the resources to kind of pass out to me. He puts the petitions together and all this stuff. Ellers, way to go.
Thank you.
But, like, I think with him already starting that is going to help the Yang Gang tremendously, because he's already putting everything, all the pieces together so we can be set up for success come the next election round. And then Heidi, you obviously work very closely with Andrew. So you already agreed that you would jump right into the next campaign. So you're going to take what we've learned from this, right? And help make sure that we don't repeat some of the same mistakes.
Yeah. Andrew and I had a long talk, and what you said with the Black community, I told him that I was pretty like straightforward about where where the campaign messed up. So we've learned a lot of lessons. We want to broaden our horizons with everyone, because Andrew's campaign, his policies, his platform is for everyone. So we want to help out wherever we can, and we want to do whatever we can to. Yeah. That's if Andrew runs again in 2024. If UBI is passed before then, he might not. If it gets passed before then, so Pelosi might be on board. We might have UBI soon, and then Andrew's going to retire.
And if we get UBI passed and he wants to retire, he's welcome to do. Yes, he's welcome to, and we need to build out systems.
Mission
so that
accomplished.
Yep, exactly. So I appreciate that, Aarika. I appreciate everybody being here. For the record, we said, Genie,
one more
go.
Thing.
Yes.
Before we go, I want to go around the room. If you guys had an extra $1,000 a month, what would you do?
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a great question.
Starting with Ellers.
I mean, I would build my business out more, because my thing, like, I wanted it to work for myself and have my own business, because I don't like working for people. So I would work on building a business.
Oh, me? I would help my family out. My family's all in Louisiana. They're all out of work. My brother has a baby that's in and out of the PICU. My mom has cancer. They're all of their lives are just a tragedy right now. So I would help my family out more. Yeah. Aarika.
This is such an emotional question. If I'm going to be transparent and honest, I will say that if I had UBI, I would really consider adopting and being a mom.
Aww.
Wow.
That's the only thing that's preventing me from having children at this point.
Make a great mom.
Oh, thank you. A little sign in my house. But it's so funny, because my best friend was literally looking at fostering. And she moved from New York and to LA, and she had her job super successful. The pandemic hit, she got laid off, and she was in the process of getting ready to foster, and now she can't do it. So, and then for me, is like my mom and I actually talk about this all the time, but I would totally adopt.
For me, I would honestly become independent from my parents right now. It sucks being still dependent on your parents. Even though, like, I don't really, to be transparent, I don't really have a great relationship with my parents. So it sucks still being like financially dependent on them. Like, I guess like one of the things that I would like more than anything is to be independent from them, so that I can like finally feel free for once. So yeah, UBI would be a game changer in that department.
For me, I would have the money to build parts I want to make more robots.
Awesome.
Yeah. And also like start some businesses, build some automated robots to do, things, business models like that. Where is the Ronald son?
I was about to say, are you Ronald's son?
I know for me, it will be owning land. And to be able to keep that land in my family and make sure that no matter what happens after I die, that it stays in the family, because that's the only asset that does not lose depreciation. And if you take care of it, you landscape it right, it builds it builds wealth that if you decide that you want to sell it, heaven forbid, but if you decide that you want to sell it, that would be the number one investment that you could get back. That's what I would do.
Awesome.
Oh, Ronald, I can't.
Oh, that was
That's a good
fun.
question. Way to end this live stream.
Yes.
Yes, Genie, thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, guys.
with that being said, I think it's fair to say that we need to have y'all on more often.
Yes.
We literally the
Genie
last.
brings a whole fan club.
I
mean,
know,
they-
Genie.
Entourage.
Like everybody's here just to see Genie's face.
Yeah.
There you
I don't
go.
care about mine. It's all
I mean,
Genie.
let's start talking all the Yankees.
Yeah, this is my first time seeing Genie's face.
Yeah.
It's really
Exactly.
interesting.
We were not disappointed.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you everybody for being here. Great conversation. Appreciate everything y'all are doing. And again, we'll need to do this again and more often for sure. Because our last hour, I mean, we gained people over 2 hours, which never happens.
Yeah, we're now up on viewers. Yeah.
Like, so everybody heard you guys and
How
heard
many
your
people are
conversation.
viewing it right
And
now?
say it again.
How many people are viewing it? Because I can't see it from my end.
Right now it's 32 live.
Okay.
Hi,
So-
everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you everybody
Thank
for tuning
you guys
in. We will
so
talk to everybody.
much.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye.